there was only one baking oven in the village, so everyone would bring their dough, and they would score it differently,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how they would recognize their
Who's this
loaf,
who?
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit, it's sort of bringing that back to the community. And I think bread, I mean, in every culture and every religion, bread is such an essential
Yeah.
staple, right?
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Line Check podcast. It's me, your host, Brendan Villarreal, and today I'm in the studio with Stijn Vanorbeek. How's it going?
Good,
Did I say
good.
that right?
Yeah,
Oh,
you
perfect.
got it
Because
right.
I'm really bad at saying stuff. I just presented awards for some of the best restaurants in Long Beach,
Hmm.
and we have a lot of Cambodian restaurants here in Long Beach,
Okay.
and those names are are
Very
very
hard.
hard to say. And I was like, shit. Even though I tried to remember how to say it, I was like, I hope I don't butcher it. And when the time comes, and I didn't, so I really gave myself a pat on the back for that.
Great.
So Stan is the owner and founder of Simply Bread Co.
Yes, correct.
Um, yeah, it's a oven company based in over here
Santana.
in
Uh-huh.
Santa Ana,
Yeah.
and it's really cool to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks. Thanks. Great.
Um, can you tell us a little bit about your company?
Um, yeah, so I started, I mean, I've always been a bread lover. Growing up in Europe, we had pretty much good artisan bread on every street
Oh
corner.
yeah, I know.
Um, Not that much anymore. It's also changing over there. But so moving to the States and to California, I mean, there is some good bread, but
Hmm.
especially in sort of smaller places, it's not that easy. So I've been baking bread for many, many years. And then, as so many, when the pandemic hit, I started baking more, and my neighbors were asking for bread, and my wife's coworkers were asking for bread. And so I was like, I want to get away from technology. I've always been in technology, and I want to get away from my computer. And I'm just gonna start a small community bakery.
Hmm.
Sort of this romantic idea of, just a
Just
small
like pick up a
artisan business,
loaf,
right?
everyone comes over.
Um, and of course, I realized very quickly that with your kitchen oven, you can't just, it just doesn't work.
It seems like everybody during the pandemic was like looking for a certain technique to get down the perfect sourdough bread.
Bread with their
And
Dutch
yeah,
ovens, and
yeah, exactly.
so that's how I started with like two Dutch ovens, and yeah, you can bake like 4 or 5 hours. You bake 10 loaves or
Hmm.
12 loaves. It's not gonna move the needle. And then I moved into a rental kitchen, into a ghost kitchen where they had a few convection ovens and with a bunch of Dutch ovens, and that I could do a bit of 30, 40 loaves, but that still doesn't move the needle. So then I discovered that there's actually a community of like micro bakers. These are people working from home, from their own kitchen, maybe from a church or a community location. They're having these small artisan bakeries. And so then I just, being a product designer and done a lot of technology before, I just set out building the sort of ideal artisan bread baking oven,
Hmm.
which is stone baking oven. Um, yeah, and that just took off. Just we got so much demand, so many orders, so many people starting small bakeries, and then the company more grew into a sort of community and network of bakers.
Hmm.
So it's not just the oven. The oven is sort of one piece of it, but the other part is actually the ordering platform and the customer management
Hmm.
platform. Because if you start a small bakery, you just want to bake just in time or for just the orders you have. It's not like a storefront where you want to bake 100 loaves and wait for customers to show up. So we built a whole software platform, a sort of app that the bakers use to manage their orders, manage their customers. But the app also has recipes and a baking calculator, etc.
Hmm.
Right? So it's more sort of an ecosystem. And then we're already dreaming of supplying hard to get ingredients, and so we pretty much want to supply. We want to. Our tagline is we want to make the baker the hero of their community,
Hmm.
sort of. So we just want to we want to empower everyone to start a small business, and a bakery and baking and bread is such a natural, you know,
Yeah,
such a natural product.
that's so awesome. Yeah, we had a bakery on here, and they were baking out of their house for a very, very long
Hmm.
time. And it's just cool to see the community come around when someone starts making bread.
Hmm.
You're like, oh, this guy's making bread. He's like, oh, everyone just starts jumping in. How can I get some of your
Hmm.
bread? And then everyone just, starts buying it and starts building their business off of that, and they have like a cult following, and that's how they start opening up their business. So it's really cool that you designed an oven for these bakers
Mm-hmm.
to empower themselves and give them the tools they need to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important, and it's really hard to open a business as it is already.
Yeah.
So to have a really good oven is definitely a good start.
Yeah. Oven is a good start, and the software platform, people also use it when they start with their kitchen oven,
Mm-hmm.
and then just build up volume from there, and until the moment they have enough business to get an oven. Um, so yeah, and I think what the most interesting part is the community.
Mm-hmm.
It's really baking. I mean, there's so many people who want to buy fresh bread, right? So it's not a sort of, we sometimes see people in a small community or in a neighborhood starting, and then someone else also starts in that same neighborhood or just around the corner, and it's not really a problem. There's enough people who would love to have a fresh
Yes.
loaf of bread.
Yeah, I will eat a fresh loaf of bread any day.
Yeah.
So how was it growing up when you're younger and just like getting food is different from over here?
Yeah, I think we have in Europe still today a little bit of a different attitude. I think the quality of the produce is better. It's grown. We talk about low food miles. I mean, food is grown also. I mean, in Europe, the sort of green beans are being flown in from Kenya or something, right? So it's not that romantic, but there's still more of a culture of locally produced food and prepared food. I think the overall, yeah, people are just much more in touch with quality
Yeah,
food, I think. I
it's,
mean,
it's much more
yeah,
small businesses that have like
yeah,
been there for generations, and
generations,
they're
right?
just
Yeah.
doing the same thing over and over again
But
every single day.
but it's also disappearing. I mean, we see a little bit the same thing happening in Europe, where people, both parents work, and they go to to the grocery store on the weekend. And so, the small community bakers are also closing because, from say Monday to Wednesday, they don't have business because people are busy. So a lot of these small storefronts, especially in smaller towns, are closing. So we actually see a lot of potential for what we're doing. It's like people still want to have good bread, like on Saturday, for the weekend or something, for a party or something, for an event they're doing. So we see a little bit the same. Yeah, but definitely there's the quality. You hear a lot of Americans going to Europe, and here they have like really like digestive problems with bread and with flour, and then they go to Europe like, oh, I don't know, they're like,
Yeah.
I don't know what we
Yeah.
know what the difference is, right? There's a lot of,
There's a big
there's
difference.
like a big difference. It's still U.S. Beef, for example, is still illegal, or meat is still illegal in Europe, right? So
Yeah.
there's a reason for it. There's a reason for it.
So what makes your guys' oven different from, say, a regular kitchen oven at least for bread? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what are the differences?
So, if you look at bread, which is pretty much a fermentation process, up till pretty much the First World War, bread was pretty much naturally fermented. Sourdough, of course, right, which is sort of the essential form of fermentation, is the yeasts and bacteria coming off the grain. And then something happened, actually. And so over the years, like pretty much like forever, bread has been baked on a baking stone, which is different. If you look at a pizza oven, pizza is baked with an open flame, but a baking oven, you actually remove the fuel from the oven, so you just bake on the heat that's in the stone, in a way. And so when you drop a cold loaf of naturally fermented dough on a hot stone, the CO2 expands, right? And that's sort of the holes in the taste in your bread. So pretty much baking a good artisan loaf of bread you do on a stone. And then post World War II, with higher protein, like faster grown wheats, higher protein wheats, they have been using baker's yeast, and so pretty much everything is fermented is sort of raised outside of the oven, and then you bake it off in a convection oven, and that's still how a lot of industrial breads are baked. So there's this evolution, and for sure 50s, 60s on. I mean, that's the Wonder Bread, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of pretty much baked flour,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
not really
yeah,
bread.
yeah, yeah.
So whatever baking oven, or what I try to do with the baking oven, there's a few other ovens on the market, is sort of simulating the environment of an original stone baking oven. So it's three decks, three stones, the steam injection, because when you in the first phase of the baking, that's like people who bake with a Dutch oven with the lid on, you still need steam to keep the
Mm-hmm.
dough elastic and moist and expand. Then you take off the lid with a Dutch oven, for example, and you sort of form a crust. And so we've sort of made that a little bit easier with the oven, where you can inject the steam. There's sort of steam injection mechanism, and then there's a steam release mechanism. So that's sort of a big part of it. So we
Mm-hmm.
tried really to make an oven that almost simulates an original stone baking oven,
Got it.
an old stone baking oven.
And how many loaves can you get out of it?
Most people do 12 to 15 loaves. You know,
Okay.
if you do 700, maybe 800-gram loaves, you can do 12. Some people do 15, but people have been doing baguettes and people have been doing croissants and
Mm-hmm.
all sort of, all
So
sort of
these are
stuff.
definitely like meant for restaurant grade bakeries.
Um, Today, our biggest market is actually not restaurants, or not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's sort of almost prosumer. It's people who, what we call micro bakers. It's people starting small bakeries from their home,
Mm-hmm.
from a community location, maybe from a church or something, or school. And there, it's we call it community supported bakeries. It's small bakeries. They do maybe between, the very active ones sometimes do 100 loaves a day,
Mm-hmm.
and that's pushing it maybe a little bit, but most of them do maybe 30, 40, 50 loaves a day, and they just bake for the community, and people pick up their bread. um, and then it's farmers
Yeah,
markets, a
that
lot of
makes
farmers markets. Yeah,
just like in that way of talking, this makes me so happy. It's like
yeah,
someone making bread and then they just come pick it up.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's a love language like that everybody should know, just
yeah.
picking up bread is hearing that
I mean,
crunch.
it's maybe a bit of a romantic idea, but sort
Yeah.
of bringing that baking oven back to the
Yeah.
village,
Yeah.
right? Like if you look at the scoring, I don't know if you knew, but the scoring of the bread, there was only one baking oven in the village, so everyone would bring their dough, and they would score it differently,
Mm.
and that's how they would recognize their
Who's this
loaf,
who?
right?
Hmm.
So it's a little bit, it's sort of bringing that back to the community. And I think bread, I mean, in every culture and every religion, bread is such an essential
Yeah.
staple, right?
Yeah, it makes me want to go bake bread now.
Yeah, right.
I've never worked in a bakery, and I'm definitely not a baker
Uh-huh.
and not the best baker, but I could definitely like learn if I wanted to
Yeah.
and get more into it. And
It's quite amazing how you see how many, and of course the pandemic helped a lot, right? People figured it out during the, I
Mhm.
mean, a lot of them didn't work, but there's many people who got pretty good at it.
Oh,
So
a
that
lot
helped.
did.
And but if you look at the products our customers make, it's quite amazing. And this is in small places, right? This is
Mhm.
neighborhoods in the Midwest or in Texas and Florida, or it's not sort of, it's not downtown LA or something.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so it's quite amazing. The quality is pretty. I mean, I don't know. Americans figured out how to bake bread again or
Yeah,
something.
that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. I love going to the farmer's market and getting a loaf of bread. Um, so how did you come up with this idea, like on the like science part of it?
Uh-huh.
Like were you like, okay, I need to make this type of oven to help small businesses or micro
I mean,
bakers?
it's always, I first did it for myself, I think.
Uh-huh.
I think the
Yeah, yeah,
best ideas are
yeah.
always like just a need you have yourself. I have a background in product development and software and hardware and mechanical engineering and software engineering. So baking oven is not that much of a
Hmm.
stretch. I did robotics before, so it is a little bit easier. And we added quite a bit of technology. One of the problems, for example, with those stone baking ovens is because you don't have convection.
Hmm.
So the problem with a convection oven is that you form your crust right away. So in the first phase of the baking, you just bake the bread with thermal transfer from the stones, and there's no convection in the oven. The problem with an oven without convection is that the heat just rises and gets very hot on
Hmm.
top.
Yeah.
So there's been similar ovens, and you sort of need to shuffle the loaves around from deck
Mm-hmm.
to deck. And so we used some quite a bit more sophisticated software algorithms, and we measure the temperature across the decks, and we control the heating element separately. So with quite a bit of software in there to actually sort of evenly bake like 12 loaves in 40 minutes.
That's cool.
And then you've got the steam injection and steam release that adds to it. And it's also sort of a connected device, so it's got Wi-Fi connectivity, and there's and it also integrates with our app, so you can sort of upload the baking profile, and you can get a lot of data of the oven.
How would you pitch your oven to, say, someone that just wants to learn how to bake, and would they be able to be successful with the tools that you give them if they purchase
Yeah,
an oven, say
we've been
now?
pretty big on what we call customer success. Is we don't want to be just actually we don't want to be a baking oven manufacturer. There's plenty of them. What we want to build is a community. I want to see fresh artisan bread or baked products with good ingredients come back to Main Street in a way, right? To every neighborhood, to every town. So it's not just the oven; it's also the education, and we've got a YouTube channel, and we've got bakers on staff. Our tech support team are actually bakers, right? So people, when they call, they can actually, we can answer the questions and help them. And there's always, every new oven or every new tool. For sure, for people who are coming from like a Dutch oven or a kitchen oven, is a bit of a step up, right? And as a chef, doing larger, like keeping the quality and the consistency with larger batches and temperature, and summer wind, like especially with naturally fermented dough in summer in California is very different than
Yeah.
than in winter. Yeah. So yeah, we've been very big on helping people being successful. That seemed to have worked well.
Yeah, I mean it's genius to model it after just bringing community together, and just helping just regular people.
Yeah.
What do you like to do on your days off? That- That's when I get a little personal.
Um, I'm just a tinkerer. I love gardening. I've got a big half-acre backyard, and doing, a lot of having people over and dinner parties. I've got a few chickens I need to take care of, and I've got quite a bit of produce. Yeah, and for the rest, I think I'm sort of but I like building stuff.
That's awesome. What do you like to build besides
Ovens.
just ovens all the time?
No, I'm building a grill. No, I'm building a grill.
Grill.
I'm still
That's
building
fun.
a pizza oven.
Oh, there you go.
So it's always a little bit. I don't know. For me, it's more sort of the intersection between
Like using your hands.
sort of creation and then technology and people. I think people, and that's why I like sort of doing something in food or hospitality, because it's about people. So it's always sort of learning and inventing and then something with people. I have a property in the Sierra Nevada, an 80 acre off-grid property, which is pretty remote. I've got a cabin there, and so there's always driving up to the mountains, and then it's again the same thing,
Beautiful.
right? Inviting people and making food.
Yeah, that's. I
Over the
mean,
campfire.
who doesn't like doing that? I love doing that. I just did a supper club yesterday, first one to kick off the summer season, and it's just so much fun to. Even though I was like in the kitchen working from whatever 2 a.m. getting fish, and then coming back and taking like a 6-hour nap, and then cook again at 10, and then cook and clean all the way till midnight. But I made everybody happy, and everyone was really, just had a really good time. I have so much joy in just doing that.
Yeah. And that's what we hear a lot from our customers. If we ask them why, because it's hard work, right? I
Yeah.
mean, even it's not on a massive scale, but you need to get up early and get the bread out. And if we ask them what's most important for them, they're like, they say, like, when I drive around the neighborhood and I see all those people in their houses, and I know that they're like eating my bread, and that's sort of the most important for them.
It's also very therapeutic.
True.
Being up early in the morning while everyone's kind of asleep. I mean, it sounds a little bit strange to maybe some other people that might be listening to this, but it's very therapeutic for me. Just like maybe I'm just like cleaning turnips, or blanching something
Yeah.
and just listen to music. And I could see the same way if I was to wake up early at 5 in the morning and just bake bread and maybe listen
Yeah.
to some jazz.
Yeah.
It's definitely something fun to do. And um, I'm not a baker, but I get it. It's
Yeah. It's a
in the
very.
same sense.
I think even though and it's a very natural product. You really need to feel the. It's maybe I think in general when you're a chef, you sort of need to feel the produce, right?
Hmm.
The freshness of it, and um, but dough is quite intimate, right? It's
Yes.
like you need to really feel the dough. It's not something,
And
and it
it's not
takes a
going to be the
while.
same. It's
Never.
always going to be different. You're not really sure which dough you're going to be working with.
Yeah.
If it's a 4 day, if it's a 6 day,
Hmm.
it's just
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's your
And maybe
sometimes
that's
your
the beauty
flour
of it.
isn't
Yeah.
as fresh, and you need a bit higher hydration. Sometimes it's just more humid or less
Yeah.
humid.
The temperature, yeah, in
Yeah,
your
it
room or
changes. So
house or wherever you keep your dough at.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a ever evolving
yeah,
struggle and very you're like just going with the flow,
yeah,
keeping your mind always
yeah,
uh, to the changes.
yeah.
So what were you doing before Simply Bread Co?
So I've been most of my career in technology. Um, I wasn't uh, I wasn't a very good student in school.
Me either.
In high school, it was terrible. So they sent me to vocational school, um, not to culinary school, but I went to vocational school and been welding and plumbing and electricity and
Hmm.
did a lot of electronics at the end. Um, and so yeah, so I got to work with my hands and a trade. But then I was already a lot doing a lot of photography back in the days. Had a dark room and was back in the film days,
Hmm.
and um, was interested in film and knew was playing in a band, was playing guitar in a band and bass in a band, and was got very interested in the arts and the visual arts. And in sound, and so I wanted to become a sound engineer. No, the only school that had a sound engineering department was a local film school, so I actually ended up in film school, only to realize I'm not a very good musician. Um, Never will be.
I
So,
feel that. I also went to school for music and also for film and editing.
okay,
And then I was not a good musician either. I was like, all right, maybe I should stop
let's do something
playing
else.
music. And then I just ended up in kitchens. And
Right,
here I am being a
right.
chef now. But
Well, now you're sort of also back full circle, right? Yeah. So I studied film and became started working on film sets and in advertising. But because I had a background in mechanical and welding and electronics and a bit of software, I started building robotic camera equipment. So if
Mhm.
you look at all the, on the TV and film says all the big cranes and the remote controlled camera system. So I designed a lot of that
Oh,
equipment.
cool.
Yeah, so that's the first company I started. I did a lot of high speed, slow motion. Actually, a lot of food stuff.
Oh.
Like back in the days, like 300 frames a second. All the strawberries falling in the yogurt, and
Hmm.
then the rest can I make a little turntable to turn the yogurt, and so that's how I started building camera robotics actually, and that became quite successful. All the big shows, and that's how I ended up in Los Angeles, working on all the big TV shows.
Hmm.
America's Got Talent and Dancing with the Stars and all those. And then in the end, we ended up replacing a lot of cameramen in the new studio. So if you look at a new studio, there's no cameraman anymore.
Hmm.
They're replaced by robots.
Wow.
So my company designed a lot of that equipment. And we ended up selling that company a number of years ago, I think 10, 12 years ago. And I ended a little bit like more in the startup sort of investment world.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's fun and learned a lot, but I'm a doer, I'm an operator.
Yeah, I just want to get shit done.
Yeah, it's sort of like I'm like, come on, let me do it. So I've done that for a while, been on the investment side for a little while, and sort of working and mentoring startups, which was great. And then yeah, and then back full circle. It's like I just want to get away from my computer and bake bread.
Hmm.
And then like 3 weeks later, I started designing a baking oven, and then the whole thing, like so
Just,
it's this never ending. I
yeah,
always like
yeah,
to get away from it and
yeah.
do something real, and then it becomes complicated again.
Yeah,
But
that's awesome though. I love that for you. That's it's kind of like me. I mean, we started the podcast a year ago. It was just supposed to be just going to local businesses and just trying food, and then just I was like, hey, let's just talk to people that I know so many people in the industry and different restaurants and chefs and bartenders, servers, and just kept doing it, and then didn't stop, and we're just keep growing, and then also with like every other single thing that I do, run marathon, do
Mm.
this, work full time, do private dinners, and it just never ends. But I get so much enjoyment out of keep doing
What do
stuff.
you see as the biggest challenge for chefs entering today or starting their career or growing, or what's the is there somewhere
I'd
thread?
I'd say that being a chef might be actually easier today
Oh,
because there's so many tools out there. Like
right.
you have your company, for
Mm.
example, with all the tools that you have if you wanted to start baking bread. And also, you have social media. You have all these channels that you can just watch now and learn how to make something so fast. I didn't have that when I started cooking. And also, a lot of kitchen cultures are changing right now with just not being a toxic environment
Yeah.
in the first place, which when I started in kitchen is very toxic and is probably very hard to be in, but I kind of liked it because that's
Yeah.
how I thought kitchens should be, is very like militaristic.
Yeah.
But now it's definitely changing from that, and I think having just all different types of people wanting to cook is good, and the tools are there if you need them.
Yeah. The information is available, right?
Yeah,
You know.
and definitely like there's this whole thing about you're a home chef, you're a whatever
Mm.
TikTok chef, or you're a classically trained chef, or all a different kind of
Hmm.
chef, or private catering, or something like that. And I just think that everyone is just the same. I'm not gonna judge you
Yeah.
if you do cook food at your home and then you sell it on the street. You're a
Yeah.
chef.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
bias here. I just think we should all be equal, and I know that there's a lot of chefs out there. It's like I've worked my way to get to this point. Like I've worked in the industry for 13 years, and I went to culinary school and I worked in some of the hardest restaurants. And like, yes, they deserve their accolades if they
Yeah.
can prove it. But
We
um,
actually see quite a few chefs turning to starting like a small bakery or something because the hours are a little, especially if
mhm,
you're having a family. So many chefs and or waiters are who are sort of just weekend and night and
mhm,
weekend work, right? And so baking, they can still be in food, they
yeah,
can still be part of the community, but they're a little bit more in control of their social life,
yeah.
or they have a social life. So that's sort of interesting
Yeah,
to
and
see.
definitely now too, a lot of chefs that, like for myself, that have been working in the industry for such a long time, that are finding new ways to make money
Hmm.
by becoming an entrepreneur,
Right.
like myself. And I think it's really cool because then now they get to shine bright in what they really are
Hmm.
passionate about, whether it be baking or
Hmm.
it be I don't know, doing what I'm doing right now, being on a podcast. But it's just
Hmm.
cool to see a lot of these people in the industry just doing their own
Yeah.
thing now.
We see the same. We see chefs and like people in hospitality, but we also see nurses,
Hmm.
which is quite interesting.
We actually had someone on our podcast that was a nurse,
Uh-huh.
and during the pandemic learned how to bake.
Ah,
And she just
right.
opened her brick and mortar
Exactly.
like a year ago here in Long
Yeah.
Beach. It's can't think of the names. Eric, what's her name? No, they're open already. Filipino cookies, brownies. Oh, Foodology.
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 Okay.
They're right on Second Street. I'm so sorry, Maria. I remember your business. But yeah, she started in the pandemic, learned how to bake, and everyone really loved it because she was giving it to everybody
Hmm.
at the hospital, and then
Yeah, I think
went for it.
of course the healthcare system is a whole other topic, but
It's-
that needs to be a separate podcast, I think. But
yeah.
there's so many people who are in medical profession, they burn out, and it's the paperwork and they went into becoming a nurse or medical practitioner to take care of people, right, in a
Hmm.
way. And they can because its system is so complicated, or they just it's just um, It's a very difficult environment, and so they're looking for something, I think, to do where they can share, and which is in a way, okay, I'm not saying bread is the healthiest product, but pretty much naturally fermented sourdough, if you don't eat too much, is a pretty natural.
It is.
It's a
Yeah.
pretty natural essential product, right? If you use good flour, and I think, yeah, people just love the sharing, and there's almost a health aspect or a whole food aspect
Mhm.
to it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of our customers mill their own grains, and kind of small mill.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, went to the ER like I would say a month ago, and the wait to get into the ER was 3.5 hours.
Well,
It's crazy. All right, that's all I'm gonna say about that. But yes, I get it. I mean, in Europe, I'm pretty sure when you're younger, you ate bread every single day in the morning
yeah,
for
yeah,
breakfast,
yeah, and for
then for
like
lunch.
warm lunch,
Yeah.
maybe warm lunch, and
Uh-huh.
then for dinner
I
again.
mean, that's what
Yeah,
I do in Europe too. When I was
yeah,
there, I just the first thing I did, wake up in the morning, walk to whatever bakery is right next to me, get a loaf of whatever pastry, and then get a coffee,
yeah.
and sit outside and enjoy the views and the
Well, you
people.
walk to the bakery,
Yeah, and
right?
I walk too. Yeah, I walk everywhere.
Yeah,
I wish that
it's
I
like, yeah,
wish I wish we lived in Europe.
talking about it. I was like, I need to go to pharmacy. I realized like pharmacies, let's like drive in, right?
Yeah.
Like it's sort of like a little bit bizarre that you like a
Yeah.
drive-in pharmacy.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
is like rather than walking to the pharmacy, like
yeah.
it's like
I always talk about it with my girlfriend. Like, how can we structured California or whatever, Los Angeles, to
hmm,
just not be walkable,
yeah.
or
Well,
everything's
it's
so
got a
spread
long,
out. I need a car. I can't get anywhere
yeah, it's
without my
got a
car.
long. I mean, it's sort of it's funny because here, like this space outside, there's a brewery, but it's pretty much a parking lot,
Yes.
you know, and that's very because I think like food and enjoying food. I mean, there's so many studies, right, about it, and also like gaining weight and that whole part, like being in a pleasant, nice, comforting
Hmm.
environment. Um, anyway, I'm always sort of surprised to like go to a restaurant and sit outside at the restaurant, but actually sitting in a parking lot. It's
Yeah,
sort of like a little bit
I have
like
a better one for you. I was at the mall. I never go to the mall, by the way. I don't even shop for stuff at the mall. I don't know why I was there, but there's Cheesecake Factory,
uh
and there's a patio inside the indoor mall. The patio was
hmm,
inside of an indoor
right,
mall, and I was like, "What?" And with umbrellas too.
right.
And I was,
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's
anyways,
bizarre.
that's
Yeah.
California for you guys if you don't live around here. But that's all the time we have for today.
Yeah.
It was
I mean, there's beautiful
yeah.
places, right? I mean, there's amazing culinary destinations around California. I
Oh, we
mean,
have
there's
so many
this,
great restaurants
yeah,
here.
and it changed. I mean, I remember it's like the last 20 years. The first time I came to the US, it was very hard to find
Yeah,
decent
yeah.
food. No, I mean, it's expensive, but
Yes.
you can at least find
Oh,
really,
there's a
really good
lot of
food.
great restaurants in
Yeah.
LA. Don't
And
get me wrong.
yeah.
I love to eat. So that's all the time we have for today. It's really fun to have you on the podcast. I'm just really excited to have gotten to meet you and talk to
Mhm.
you today. And I hope people will listen to this podcast episode and check out your company and hopefully buy your oven and
Start a bakery.
start a bakery. Learn something, try something new. Don't be afraid.
Great.
But
Thanks.
yeah, make sure you guys follow Simply Bread Co. And that's it. And that's your line check for today. Bye, guys.